the scene I chose for today is, it's a watercolor. So this is, we are painting from a painting, which, you know, I try to alternate. Sometimes we'll do from a picture, sometimes from a painting or a drawing. It just gives us a kind of insight into perspective of artists and how things were tackled. So this one is going to be really fun to work with, because we're going to talk a lot about the color red, which is, if you look at a lot of watercolor paintings, you see that, you know, some artists kind of avoid it. It's kind of a finicky color to work with. And we're going to talk a lot about that. And I'm going to help you kind of solve some of the issues we might have with red. And the other thing we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to balance out the painting, because you have, you know, Big Ben in the background, you have some other things, and you have that red phone booth that is very prominent. So I'm going to show you how to have it stand out, but at the same time, not isolate it from the rest of the painting. We're gonna do some different techniques, and I also had asked you to have an ink pen. Now, if your painting is not dry, you do not want to attempt it, but I do have one that I've been working on, so I can show you what to do with the ink pen, and you can do it later, or if you have dry patches during class, we can do it. So in the source, in the painting, I don't know if they've used ink pen, but I thought this would be perfect just to show you how you can use it to enhance the painting. I have different ones just to show you that you can use anything. This is just, you know, just a regular like Sharpie. It does have a thin tip. When you're working on watercolor paper, you don't want it to be too thin, because then it will scratch the paper. This is another Sharpie with a slightly different type, more like, looks like a ballpoint, but it's not. So this is one of the more probably geared towards painting and art, but honestly, I haven't found that it's that different. And this one also is like made for calligraphy and stuff. And they all have a similar point. Just make sure it's not too small. And so this kind of is really my go-to. I take it when I travel, or you know, you can buy them in a pack and have them. So let's go to the painting, Melissa, if we can. Okay, thanks. All right, so this is not finished yet, but I kind of wanted to show you where it's going. And what I did is I started doing the background architecture and the phone booth, and I actually did them in wet on wet within their own areas, and I'm going to show you how to do that. The sky I kept really muted, just a barely there grayish blue, kind of to also go with what London would feel like. And then the foreground is just a very light wash with some of the colors that are in the painting. So you can see up close that I kind of started a little bit with the ink pen. Now what the ink pen is going to do, it can give you some additional shading. It can help with shaping. It can also help straighten areas that need to be straightened. You know, you can use a small ruler if you want, just to make sure that things are aligned. But what I actually prefer to do is, when I'm working on something that has straight lines or buildings or any architecture, is I kind of turn my paper around every once in a while when I'm working, and I can see in the booth that I need to, some of these lines are not straight. They looked straight to me when they were like this, but you know, just turn it around in a couple angles and just check and make sure that everything is where it needs to be. Okay, so let's talk about the color red for a little bit. So typically, if you have, you know, kind of a student typeset, even this one, which is really a very basic one, does have two reds. You've got a cool red and there is a warm red. And the reason for that is that in watercolor or in paint in general, it's very hard to get that one primary red or one primary blue or even yellow, but especially the red, because it really will have either a cool undertone or a warm undertone. And that is gonna change the color of your red object entirely. So I'm gonna show you how the two of them look and then how to mix other primaries with them to create the color that you want. So also in my set over here, I do have, that's more of like an orange, but it does have some red in it. That's kind of like a fire engine red. Then I have slightly cooler reds over here. And this is a very, very deep red. So I'm gonna go back to our basic box and kind of show you the two reds. So one of the things that happens with red is that it tends to separate a little bit. So the consistency, so I'm going to go to the, I'm gonna keep these up here so you can see what I'm doing. So this is the cool red. And I took some water and I'm going to, okay, so here's the red, and I'm gonna show you just when it gets lighter, kind of the color that it is. So here it is at its full strength, and you can see how it's kind of more of a cooler pink. And then I'm gonna go to the warm red that I have. And then you can see so there's a huge difference between the two reds. Now let's say you have a set that only has one red, okay? So if you want, let's say you have the more orange red, which is this one, what you can do is you can take a touch of purple, magenta, a little bit more, and just add it, and you will start getting a cooler red. So this color is this orange red with a little bit of purple or magenta or any kind of coolish tone that you have. If you're going to use blue, just put a dot, because again, depending on the blue that you have, if it has a warm tone, it's not going to achieve that effect. And let's say you just have the cool red over here. What you can do is you can add a little bit of yellow or orange to it. And you can see that it immediately gave it a warmer tone. So this is how you're going to handle the reds. So there is no one formula to making that red work every single time. You just have to try it. You have to do some mixing, and you have to look at the red that you are doing in order to find the right one. So in the phone booth, if you notice on the inside, the red is a little bit cooler because it has a little bit of, because it's inside, it doesn't have as much light on it. And then at the bottom, you're getting really, really cool and then almost black over there. So that's the first thing with red, which is the color. The other thing with reds is that it is best that you layer your red and not do it, because sometimes people think, oh, I have this beautiful red, I'm just going to put it at full strength. What happens is that it does look fine when it's wet, but when it dries, it's going to blotch. And red is just, it is like that. It's one of those colors that likes to be layered. It does not like to be put in one solid glob of color. Okay, so that's for our reds. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start on our painting. And, you know, of course, even though I'm not a fan of using a pencil, you know, you definitely can if you want to start it, but I don't feel that we need to. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a kind of like a mustard yellow to use for my Big Ben building. And so anytime you're going to use a lot of the same color, make sure that you make yourself a nice big puddle of it. So here's my palette. And actually, I found these at the dollar store, which I think are perfect. Actually, the Dollar Tree, if you're here in Houston, you want to get them. So this is great. It can give me gives me a lot of areas to mix my color. So what I'm going to do is I am going to make this kind of mustard color. I do have a yellow ochre over here. I'm going to add a little bit of orange. I'm going to add water. Okay, so see, I have a nice puddle to work with. And what I'm going to do, so for this, we're going to do a wet on wet technique. Wet on wet means your paper is wet and then you're adding wet paint to it. So it's kind of gonna go into places. But what we're gonna do on this one is I'm gonna use this because that's kind of like tinted water, because I need to be more specific. I'm not doing a background, I am doing the clock. So I am going to take, a medium-sized brush, okay? And I am going to just very lightly paint, place the shape. So this is actually kind of, this is being my water. And I'm going to, you can even add just plain water to it. You want it to be light enough to where you can see it, because you want to see where you're going to be putting your paint. If we just use clear water, it might not be as easy to see. So again, we're just doing this as a guide. Okay, so now I have my shadow, pretty much my silhouette of the Big Ben. So what I'm going to do next is I am going to give it a little bit more color. So this is wet and I'm working on wet. So actually the paint is only going to go where the water is. So, but kind of try to keep it more to the inside. So I'm going to use a little bit of brown and a little bit of orange and a little bit of yellow. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start putting it in, and I'm just giving this area a little bit more shape. Again, I'm just doing the just warmer color. So, you know, mixing oranges, golds, anything like that. And, you know, just don't go too dark at this point. If your area has dried, you can just add a little bit more water. So what this is going to do, this is going to give it like a really nice kind of flowy look to it.
What did you mix with the brown? I forget, what was it, orange?
Just orange, yellow, just to get kind of that, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, you can see over here. So again, to get that color, I'm using yellow. You can use this yellow, this yellow. It just all depends on what you have in your palette. And I'm just putting a little bit of orange onto it and a little bit of brown. And if it's too orange, just add a little bit more yellow. Okay, and then I'm gonna take this and just kind of trail it off over here. Melissa, I think someone is not muted. It's creating noise. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I am going to do the buildings that are over here, and they have that kind of light, kind of beigey color. They're not as yellow as the clock, and in some areas it's quite gray. So again, I'm going to create a color that I can use all throughout to mark my my building. So I'm actually going to use some of that color that I had started with, and I'm going to put just a drop of blue, a little bit more than a drop, just to kind of give it more of a cooler color. So I'm going to put in, and you know, just try to see where is it placed so it sits a little bit lower than Big Ben. And I'm gonna kind of just stop here so I can leave room for the booth. And then we see kind of an angle up over here. So again, we're just tinting our water so we can see the area that we are working on. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is the dome over here has a little bit more coolness to it. So I'm gonna take a little bit of blue. And I actually put it in that brown that I had earlier. So sometimes it's just fun to use what you have on your palette. That would be my first go-to. Okay, so I'm gonna put this in. So again, it's creating a gray, but if you use a color that is already on your palette, that means that you've used it on your painting, and actually you are creating balance that way subconsciously. Okay, I'm gonna do a little bit of the structure. We're not gonna use perspective lines, just, you know, make sure that you follow those lines. And so again, this is kind of that grayish color I created for the dome. I'm gonna use a little bit more kind of gold, yellow up here. And if your surface is dry, just add a little bit. So this is giving me like no edges, which is a really cool effect for watercolor. I'm just going to structure a little bit more. Because even though they're buildings, it's watercolor, it's translucent. And also, if I were doing this on my own, I wouldn't be talking, so my areas would stay a little bit damper than they are right now. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do, of course, at this point, what you can do, you can add more to it with still going wet on wet, but I kind of want to move on and just show you different things. You can just give it a little bit more color if you want. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do the phone booth, and you kind of need to make the decision where it's going to stop. If you're going to make it bigger, smaller, you know, it doesn't have to be exact. So I'm going to start with a warm red. And again, I want to create a nice red puddle over here so I can use that for my shadow or my silhouette. It's got a little arched top. I'm going to leave this white here where it says telephone. Again, make sure that you have a nice big puddle of that so it doesn't dry. I think I actually need more. Okay, so again, it's just tinted water. It is like very, very weak tea. You don't want a whole lot of pigment for this part. I'm going to switch to a slightly bigger brush so I can cover more area, not have any lines. And notice here I didn't, you can just leave some. None of them are really white, the boxes in the glass, but you can leave some of them. Even if you're this light, you will still be fine. Okay, so what I'm going to do next is I am going to go back to the smaller brush, and now I'm going to start adding more color. So I'm going to do a little bit of my warm red. And see, look how it just kind of starts seeping through. I'm just giving it a little bit more structure. So this is giving me a nice base to work with and to be able to fine tune my reds later on. So with a very thin brush, what I'm going to do is I am going to create the frames. And I'm just going to take very little color. And see, it's going to, and kind of do this last when your surface is not that wet. And make sure you use a very thin brush. Because I still like the effect of it kind of just bleeding off a little bit. I'm just giving it a little bit more precision. And again, see they're light enough to where you can still play around with them. So I'm just structuring this area a little bit more. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put in the foreground and we're going to put in the background. So for the background, we're going to create, now hopefully you have 2 jars of water because one is looking pretty red and you don't want your sky to be red unless that's intentional. And we're going to create a big puddle of blue. And this is going to be very light. It's very kind of in the distance. You're just barely tinting your paper. So I'm going to just put some water here. Just pick any blue that you have. And make sure you make a nice big quantity of it because you don't want your sky to have streaky lines. Okay, so this is a pretty bright blue. So let's see how we're going to tune it a little bit. So here's my paper. Okay. Yeah, I think it's fine, but I would like it to just have a little bit more gray to it. So to do that with blue, the best color you can use is orange. And the orange just kind of just deflates the brightness. And really just a drop. Do it very gradually, just you don't want to. So I'm actually going to put my orange right here. And just take a little bit. Oh, see? Way too dark. So I'm going to have to redo that color. I'm just going to take some of that boo-boo over there. Okay, so again, Kind of too gray. I think I will add just a little bit more blue to it. See, again, you know, I've done this a million times, but it's just always, it's always different, and they're also going to look different against different colors. Okay, this is better. So this is kind of the color that I want, except it's going to be a little bit lighter. Remember, it will dry much lighter. Okay, so I like that final color. I'm going to add more water to it, which is going to make it lighter, and it's going to give me a big puddle. And I'm just going to go ahead and apply it to the background, and it's okay if it gets on the buildings. I'm going to switch to a flat brush. I like a flat brush when I'm working around buildings because it can, and you know, you can have the sky darker if you want. Okay, this is really you know, just the barely there, and you can see the difference between that and the white paper. I'm gonna take just a little bit more blue. Just give it a little bit more of color. And make sure that this doesn't puddle, so just kind of swipe it around. So this is going kind of around the buildings. Okay. And now I'm going to do the foreground. So if you look at it against the other buildings and the sky, it does have like almost like a rosy tint to it. So if I put a little bit of red in my mix, it is going to definitely balance out my phone booth. So this is the first thing we're doing in balancing the colors out, giving it a little bit more harmony. So I am going to go back to my palette. And I'm going to take some yellow. And then I'm going to take a drop of red. Okay, so you can see that it has a little bit of red to it. Let's test it on my scratch paper. I think it can use a little bit more red to it. And then that was too much. I'm just going to put a little bit more water. A little too red. I'm going to just add a drop of yellow. Okay, I think I like that. So I'm going to put that in my foreground. Again, I'm using a flat brush, the one that's kind of pinched down here. Okay, so since I do have this wet area, I'm just going to put in this, I don't know, are they steps or something? So I'm going to go back to my palette. There's still a little bit of that yellow left, and I'm just going to place them lightly. I kind of didn't really understand why these were in the picture. They're just not doing much of anything, so I'm not going to give them a lot of attention. And then the next thing we're going to do is we are going to work on, I mean, it looks like a bunch of cars over here, maybe people some smaller buildings. It's kind of like a dark mass, and I kind of like that they're very abstracted. And we're doing these last because that's a darker color, and we don't want it to dirty the rest of the color. So whenever you have a dark color or a color that is kind of pronounced, just kind of keep it towards the end. Okay, so what I'm going to do for this over here is I'm going to take a brown and Ziggy, no, and excuse me. Okay, okay, so I'm going to take a little bit of brown and I'm going to add a touch of blue to it because that kind of seems to be the combination over there. So I'm going to take brown. Oops. This is kind of a really rich brown that I have here, or if you have kind of a lighter brown like this one, that's fine too. And I'm going to take a touch of blue. Okay, let's try out that color. It's a little too green. Let's go add a little bit of brown to it. Okay, I think that's better. Let me try it out. Okay, I think that will work. And what we're going to do is we are going to make a little bit more of a puddle of it. And this one we're kind of doing darker because we're not doing anything that has a lot of precision to it. So I'm really just kind of looking over there and just putting in the different heights and widths that I'm seeing. Okay, and since I have this color, I am going to go, because the colors kind of seem to kind of creep up over here. So I'm just going to just add some of them up here. And then I'm going to take a little bit more water and just do slightly watered down additional areas. I'm going to put in the little posts over here. Okay. And if you still have any of that brown, just try to think where else you can use it. Like this definitely goes dark over here. Okay, I'm just trying to see what's dry. Okay, so now we have everything in our painting. We have all the elements. They do have a good ground of color to them. And what we're going to do next is we're going to start giving a little bit of detail. And remember, every time you add color, you want to make sure that you also shape and that you just check everything, kind of turn your painting around to see if anything is skewed or needs to be corrected. Okay, so I think by now almost everything is dry. I left the lamp posts kind of till the end. I mean, you can put them in now, but I just really wanted to make sure that the areas were dry before doing that. Okay, so one thing I want you to notice in the picture is that there are very small splotches of red all throughout the painting. You can see them up here on the clock. You can see them in the lines. You can see them in the dark post. Of course, we did them a little bit in our background. You see them a little bit over here on this platform, and you definitely are seeing some of them kind of right underneath the I don't know what that thing is called, over a window. You can kind of see them peeking in different areas. So again, this is, you know, subconsciously what will give it more color balance and make all the pieces look like they belong to the same painting. Okay, so I'm gonna take you know, a kind of smaller brush because I'm gonna start with detailing, and I am going to start with the Big Ben. Actually, I'm also gonna have kind of a slightly smaller one. So I can see that the top over here is has a little bit more brown to it. So I'm gonna take a little bit of brown. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I am adding color at the same time I am reworking the shape. So what I like to do is I like to have my paintbrush loaded, and I like to create a frame, and then I pull it all in, and that way I don't have any edges. But you want to make sure that your brush is loaded when you do that, because if it's not full, then you will have some kind of scratchy marks. Okay, I'm gonna move a little bit higher up, and doing the same thing. Oops, this is a little too dark. I think I grabbed the wrong color. So what I'm going to do is I'm just gonna pick some of it up and put it down here. See, I don't waste any paint. And I'm just gonna put it in an area that it can be useful. Okay, so I'm going to start breaking down this surface. And what I'm going to do is I'm also going to intensify that color a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of, let's see if you can see both. Okay, a little bit of yellow. And just a little bit of orange and brown. I'm just working kind of around the shapes. And what I like to do when I see the color trailing off, I just take water and I just kind of pull it down a little bit. I'm just going to pull these lines down. So again, while I'm doing this, I'm also checking the sides, making sure that it looks right. Okay, I'm going to go to another section. And see, having that first wet on wet wash has really helped give me a lot of base. And just wherever you see the color being more yellow, just maybe add a little bit of yellow to your mix. Okay, so this has a little bit more definition now. Since we can't believe time went by so fast today. Okay, so I'm going to work a little bit on the phone booth, and then I'm going to go back to the one that I started working on earlier so I can show you how to do the ink technique, the ink pen. Okay, so I am going to start building my reds. So this one is, there's a little bit of warmth to it. Again, you have to play around with the different reds to find the right one. I'm going to add a little bit of orange. Get a little bit more brightness. You can see the difference between the two reds. I can see that the shape over here needs, the top of it looks like it has some yellow, so I'm just gonna. Okay, now to get some of those deeper reds, like the ones that are on the inside over here, I'm gonna take my red and I'm gonna take a little bit of purple. So I'm getting a very deep red. So the thing is, when you're gonna go dark, I mean, this area looks almost black, but if you use the base of that color to be red, then it's gonna connect with it rather than using, you know, a black or something like that. Okay, since I have this color, I'm going to start using it where I see it. And because I'm not switching colors, you know, I don't have blue or green or anything, it's okay to work on it while it's wet. Okay, let's start defining those lines a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to work on just kind of sections so you can see how they finish up. Okay, again, I'm going to go back to my red with a little bit of orange. And again, make sure that it's not too thick. You want to layer it. You have to be patient with it. You're going to get much better results if it's not too thick. You should still be able to see the grain of the paper. Okay, and you can see at the bottom, it's getting really dark. So I'm going to add some purple to that red. And I'm going to add a little bit of brown. And this area, of course, can go quite a bit darker. Okay, since I have that dark color, I'm going to use it to define a little bit. Shh, stop it. Okay, so that shows you how the reds are building. Let's do a little bit of the bricks over here, and then we're going to do some of the ink work. Stop it. Sorry, my little dog is very feisty today. Okay, so for these bricks over here, I am going to use a little bit of brown. Closer, put a touch of blue. And I am just going to start defining this arch area over here. So make sure when you do the bricks that you are keeping in mind that there's just a couple angles like these over here. You can kind of see them, you know, facing you. And then here, they're kind of going away from you. So they have just a different angle to them. I'm going to define this a little bit. So, you know, again, this, got a little bit of red over here. So again, you know, this painting is really not complicated. It might be just a little bit more time consuming, but it's certainly not complicated. It's just something that you just really have to take your time with just to build up the detail. Let's say like over here, I'm just starting to give it a little bit more detail. Make sure that you check everything. So we talked about the reds kind of being kind of bouncing around. So we kind of see some of them a little bit over here. We can certainly see them in here. You know, just start off like small. And if they're too much, you can take them off. But that will really give a lot of color balance. You can kind of sneak it in here. Just water that down a little bit. Okay, so basically what you're going to do is kind of just the same thing. You're going to start kind of going around like, you know, working on the trio of items in your painting and start detailing. So as when you start getting to the finer detail, you know, I don't want you to rely completely on the ink pen to do that for you. You know, take a small brush and, you know, just start giving some of those areas just a little bit more detail beforehand. So if you have that already with the paint, you're going to have a really nice ground to put your shadows, your ink pen lines into. See, like this over here. These are like nice little details to add before you add the ink pen. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the piece I worked on earlier, and because it's dry, so I can show you what I'm doing with the ink pen. Okay, so some of the areas I started a little bit on the clock. And so I'm going to work just a little bit on the phone booth. So the one thing you don't want to do is, you know, you don't want to outline anything. So even like this up here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to just do a bunch of kind of broken lines. So if your pen does not give you a steady line, that's actually even better. So I'm doing a bunch of little lines. You know, you don't have to pull them all the way through to give the effect, because also you don't want to take away from, you know, the watercolors. Okay. Even here for, you know, the words, you know, just kind of like, and just do it like you're seeing it. It's very, you know, barely there. Okay. So for example, like this really dark area over here, that's where it's going to be fun to do that with the ink pen. So I'm just doing kind of like some hatching lines, and I'm just kind of pulling them out a little bit, extending them past. And what that's showing, it's showing the weight of this phone booth. So again, you know, I'm not really using any, you know, solid straight lines. And, you know, pull some of them to show a little bit of ground. And you can carry this as far as you want. You know, we can even do some more bold lines. And we can, what I did over here is I did some cross hatching. You can see it. And, you know, again, even for something like these lines over here, they don't have to be completely straight. Just, you know, just have fun with them. Just let. And what I do when I do this part is I try to do it really fast so it's more spontaneous and, you know, just kind of looks just more fluid. And, you know, even if, you know, you have more than one line where it shouldn't be, I mean, it's a piece of art, so it can have its own lines. Okay, so for example, over here, we showed you on the other one, like where we did a little bit of detailing. So again, you know, don't overthink it too much. Just, you know, just follow the image that you have. And, you know, you don't have to do every window, but see, just doing sometimes just very little and just selective detail, it goes a long way. So like, you know, just detail over here, like maybe nothing over here, maybe a little bit up here. So basically, in other words, you know, I want you to go outside the lines for this. You know, kind of just exaggerating that over here is helping with, you know, show the shape. And you can get in these kind of details over here. And the bricks over here, these are also fun. I mean, even for the bricks, you could just kind of just do some, you know, some squiggles to show that, you know, that texture. So yeah, this can, and you know, again, the ink pen, it's nice. What's really nice is that you can do like the very thin lines that you might want. And even for the posts, if you want, you can just do them with ink. I don't think that they need to be drawn out. You know, if you want to give something just a little bit more shading or definition, you could even, you know, just do some, you know, some light cross hatching. And this thing over here that I've very much ignored. Let's give it some love. Okay, I think we are almost out of time. So again, you know, this is really a piece I would love for you to, you know, take your time, you know, work with it. And also, you know, be selective. You don't have to put everything that's in there. I mean, if you just want to do this with Big Ben, or, you know, kind of, you know, zoom in, just do the, you know, the box. But what I really want to see you do is connecting those colors together. That's the one thing I really want to see out of this one. And I want you to have fun with the ink pen, and see if you like it. Some people don't like it. They just like, you know, to have it be just pure watercolor. It's completely up to you. There looks to be kind of like a, maybe a lion's, you know, that head thing over here. Let's see, it's cool. It can give a lot of depth to the painting. Okay, so let's see, do we have any questions or go back? Okay.
Well, my question is about the inside of the phone booth.
Mm-hmm. It's very abstracted shapes. I mean, what I did on mine is I just did, I just did colors. If you look at each box, you will see that, it has like the top three
Certain
almost have
color.
just like a yellow. So, just color blocks. The thing that I really like about this painting is that it's not, it's not stiff. It's very fluid. So, I think just do it with the spirit of, well, let me just try that. Let me just put pink or
Yeah.
or yellow.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. Hey, Kina. Can everybody unmute themselves or? Okay. So I just have to say something. This painting, this subject was done in honor of my niece, Kina. She is finishing up her master's degree in journalism, and she was supposed to have her internship in London, and she did not get to go. So I thought, just bringing her a little piece of London.
This is the next best thing.
Huh?
This is the next best thing after it.
I know. So we even have a rainy day for you here in Houston. She's in Canada, and she's so talented, and we're so proud of her. So giving her a little piece of London. So any other questions or can I just see take a quick look and see what, I'm just curious to see how much was accomplished because.
Yeah.
Oh, Nuera, that looks fantastic. Okay. See, the thing is like you look at them and they look like London. There's no doubt. Oh, Phyllis, that looks great. Sharon, you're going to show me?
Oh, mine looks like I'm 10 years old, but me, I'll work on it and work on it.
Oh, no, great start. Great start.
Yeah.
So just be mindful of the booth. It's very easy for it to be skewed. So just check it. And honestly, I don't mind if you use a ruler just to get some angles right. Sometimes if I'm working on something very architectural, I will take a ruler and I will maybe just do one, half of a line just to make sure that everything is in the right place.
Well, I usually draw a million lines, but I didn't have time.
No, definitely. You're not gonna have time with this. So,
and my page was wet, so I couldn't get in some of the detail stuff. Oh well, I'll work on it.
Yeah, I know you will. So again, these are techniques. I really like using the wet on wet the way we did it. I think it's very fast. I mean, believe it or not, this was fast for the subject. So kind of doing your silhouettes here. Okay. I don't know what that was. Yeah, there's. Okay. Well, anyways,
did everyone again?
Okay.
Noelle, you need to unmute yourself.
Okay, so again, I just wanted to give you some ideas to play around with and finding new ways to work on a painting. The wet on wet, silhouettes like we did and just putting a very watered down version of the color really does help speed up the process, and it helps you see things against each other. So I really like this technique a lot. The thing with watercolor is so much of it is everybody thinks it's about color mixing when actually it's about consistency of the water. Like when do you want it to be like very weak tea, like strong tea? When do you want it like almost like opaque, probably in very small doses? But these are the things that you become better and better at doing, because also you have to remember that colors look very different when they dry. So trying out, you know, different, you know, techniques and things like we did with playing around with the colors, you know, it's worth it. And then in the end, you know, you can cut all your little scraps out and make, you know, gift tags with them. So, you know, nothing will go to waste. I really like that. So, and actually, as we get closer to the holidays, we're going to do some things. Maybe we could do some postcards or cards or things that, you know, we can use as gifts for our loved ones. So if you have any ideas or anything that you would like us to do or work on, let me know. Send me your paintings and your drawings, and I'll see you next time.